You've got photomicrographs that demonstrate this very clearly.
Did the presence of 16th century cotton skew the radiocarbon dating of the Shroud of Turin?
When I looked at these samples from the radiocarbon area, there's no problem at all finding cotton in them.
Fatality.
Today we're going to shine some light on the false representation of the dating of the Shroud of Turin.
Benford noticed something strange about the piece of shroud chosen for carbon dating samples. The herringbone pattern that is so consistent elsewhere in the cloth looked misaligned.
Our theory is that there's a mixture of 16th century cloth and 1st century cloth, and the data that we're seeing on the cloth matches that theory.
Many of you don't care about the Shroud of Turin. You say, oh, well, it doesn't impact my faith, my belief, and that's fine. What we want to do in this episode is just show that, hey, all we're looking for is the truth. All we want is an accurate date and an accurate representation of the facts. We want an authentic scientific dating of the shroud, and we did not get that with this carbon-14 dating.
Nope. You want answers?
Can we prove that the Shroud of Turin is the burial cloth of Jesus? No, but we can question the authenticity of the carbon-14 dating to get closer to the truth.
I think I'm entitled.
You want answers?
I want the truth!
When the many scientists and researchers on the Shroud of Turin research project team, the STURP team, presented what they recommended would be a proper way to carbon-14 test the cloth, the Shroud of Turin, they gave those recommendations, and the entities that did the carbon-14 dating, they did not follow the guidelines prescribed because they had an agenda.
You snotty little...
Nothing is more telling that I have an agenda than the body language of this man who led the carbon-14 testing. The STURP team consisted of 33 primary scientists and researchers. They proposed 26 different tests, chemical, physical, and radiocarbon. The Vatican eventually rejected 25 of them and went with the carbon-14 test in one area, a terrible place in the region of repair work. All it took to question the integrity of the carbon-14 dating was for some amateurs to investigate the appearance. Well, that doesn't look right. That looks like a part where there was a reweave, a French reweave in the cloth.
Benford and Marino believe that the carbon date was wrong because the section chosen for the samples was contaminated with later material.
It's more like this. The ends are unraveled in the main cloth. The ends are unraveled in the patch. They are spliced together, and the threads are connected and interwoven, so you see literally an interweaving such that you have old and new on both sides of the equation.
In 2000, Benford and Marino published a paper claiming that medieval cotton was introduced into the damaged corner of the linen shroud. Their claims were immediately dismissed by the scientific community.
Nope.
Well, one of the chemists says, I can debunk these amateur researchers in an instance. All I have to do is take a look at one of the strings that I have left from that very particular sample.
I am Raymond N. Rogers, and I've been working on the shroud since 1977. So I read their paper, and I thought, I've got the samples that can shoot that full of holes.
Now, it didn't quite work out the way Ray Rogers thought. He confirmed these amateur researchers and found cotton thread intertwined with the original. He also found a bonding agent and dye.
Until I could get a sample from the real radiocarbon cloth, a documented sample, I couldn't prove anything. The authentic radiocarbon sample that I got, these segments of yarn were cut from the middle of the radiocarbon sample, so there was no question about them. And when I looked at these samples from the radiocarbon area, there's no problem at all finding cotton in them.
What does this chemist do with his findings? He publishes the data, of course. So when dogmatic skeptics claim there is no data, no reason to doubt the carbon-14 dating.
Now, there have been attempts to discredit those carbon-14 analyses by suggesting that samples were corrupted because a fire burned the shroud or because the samples were taken from a part of the shroud that had been repaired, but none of those are supported by any data at all.
They are either unaware of Raymond's data or they are selectively omitting or dismissing it. So what are the findings from this expert on the Shroud of Turin? He says, quote, observations prove that the radiocarbon sample was not part of the original cloth. What do you get when you mix the Shroud of Turin original with a lot of cotton? You get a lot younger date. And what do you get when you mix the majority of the original with just some cotton? Well, you get a lot older date. You can visibly see the line of demarcation separating the original linen and the patch that this chemist confirmed on the sample he obtained, showing the presence of cotton, gum, and dye.
You've got photomicrographs that demonstrate this very clearly. The cotton fibers from the radiocarbon sample are fairly heavily coated with the gum dye mordant.
The dating ranges vary by hundreds of years between the 4 labs. The results show what you'd expect from a sample intermixed with cotton of varying degrees. The more interwoven cotton, the younger the age, and the samples with more of the original, the date is older.
The thread that I was going to analyze broke into 2 pieces.
I'm coming to the conclusion that it has a very good chance of being the piece of cloth that was used to bury the historic Jesus.
Another interesting fact is that we have depictions of the shroud in the Prey Codex that is itself dated older than the Carbon-14 dating. It even demonstrates that the poker holes originated even earlier. Don't take it from me, I'm not the chemist here on the Shroud of Turin research project. Let's listen to what Ray Rogers has to say about this and some of his quotes. He says in his publication, the radiocarbon sample was thus not part of the original cloth and is invalid. It's invalid for determining the age of the shroud.
Just as Rogers suspected, the threads appeared to be 2 pieces of cotton and linen woven together.
He says because the sample was found to contain dye, cotton fibers which were easy to observe, and no other part of the shroud has these coatings. Quote, the consequence of this conclusion is that the radiocarbon sample was not representative of the original cloth. End quote.
They come in and they snip in secret and take the worst possible sample they could.
With the Shroud of Turin, we have the most studied relic in history, and we also have the most accurately inaccurate Carbon-14 date ever composed on a cloth.
The people who certified the sample are still trying to convince everybody that everybody else is wrong. They're right.
You can't handle the truth.
The truth is, we didn't prove the shroud is older, but it has been demonstrated by scientific data. There is reason to doubt the Carbon-14 results. They did not even follow the recommendations by the STURP team to test multiple areas to establish a control. With the presence of cotton and gum dye mordant from the middle of the sample identified by a leading chemist on the STURP team, there is reason to trust the laboratory results, but there are even more reasons to dismiss them because of the lack of integrity from the interwoven sample. We briefly introduced the Prey Codex, depicting the shroud and its unique features, and showed that this Hungarian manuscript is dated older than the Carbon-14 results. There was plenty of more regarding the shroud that we could have discussed, and if you'd like to see it, ensure that you enjoy the variety of content I provide. If so, please hit subscribe and like this video. In the next shroud-related videos, the question can be explored. Which came first, the shroud image or the art? There are numerous points of congruence between paintings and even ancient coins that date much older than the early Carbon-14 results. We could even discuss the common blood types between the shroud and the sudarium, which is dated older. We could discuss the image of Edessa, the VP8 three-dimensional images, the regional pollen, or the images within the image. So again, please hit those buttons, and thank you. To conclude this video, it has been demonstrated that yes, the presence of younger cotton interwoven with the original cloth has given a false representation of the shroud's age. This isn't the result of bad science from the 4 labs doing their job, but it is due to the poor execution of science by biased individuals. Congratulations to science. If you made it this far into the video, thank you for watching. There are references to a clean linen cloth, a linen shroud in all 4 Gospels, so there is a real potential still that this could be the preserved witness to the light of Jesus' resurrection, causing a faint image on the outermost fibrils of the cloth. But then again, it may not be. The invitation is not to believe in the authenticity of a piece of linen. Regardless of what non-believers say, faith is based on evidence handed down from eyewitness testimony, people that saw, who touched, heard, confirmed, and witnessed convincing proofs. Maybe the Shroud of Turin was a piece of evidence that convinced people that the eyewitnesses of the resurrected Jesus spoke truth. The burial cloth would be the only immediate and intimate witness to the actual reanimation of Jesus' dead corpse. For the rest of us, we have the testimony of these early eyewitnesses preserved in Scripture and based on evidence.
Have you believed because you have seen me? Blessed are those who have not seen and yet have come to believe. John 20:29.